Hello, everybody, and welcome to, let's see, I guess this is the science of triangles, and we're on the 34th reading, actually, academic reading, and we're on page 455, and I think there's some very interesting things here. Now, I've written down a lot of connections, let me just say. Using that planet Mercury, which I think the Tibetan uses to a great extent to weave that web, or at least detect the web that pure reason has created. We have to remember how strong is the third ray in Mercury. We're told of the fourth ray soul, and that's about what we need to know, but I think there's a third ray personality and a third ray physicality and an ultimate third ray monad with Mercury, which distinguishes it quite a bit from Venus, which is also a very mental planet on one level. So I'd just like to have a little, occasionally you're going to see some things going on there. There's a big vote today and tomorrow in the Parliament of England, and it's something that you can tune into live. It's very interesting how the United Kingdom debates. It's a Ray 1 personality, and London it has a Ray 7 personality. And everything is very formal in one way and quite rowdy in another way. It's very different from the form of American government, and it's an interesting Ray study. Of course, it's much more than that, because the democracies, which are very important in the new developments of humanities, I think, Aquarius is somehow a very democratic sign, and democracy is intended to flourish. Well, the various democracies are under attack through a kind of a splintering effect. A kind of the forces of separation are active. Now you can, debate, and it's up to you whether you think the United Kingdom should stay within Europe, and in many respects it is an important part of Europe, but it's also a planetary center, and in that way is independent from Geneva, which rules the larger part of Europe. So it's a fraught situation to decide which way to go. I mean, that part of the world ruled by the United Kingdom has to be, in a way, self-determining within a cooperative relationship, and at the same time they are very influential in Europe. And so this debate is something that we in the United States, or those who are part of that other second-ray country, United States, have to look on with care, because we could be in that same fragmented situation, and to a certain extent we are. So, Christ said, I come to bring not peace, but the sword. And the sword is the sword of discrimination between what is good and evil, and what is spiritual and what is material. And all of that is being worked out right now before our eyes, and especially if we can say what is unselfish and what is selfish, because people's motives are very, very important. And that's why somehow, instead of this pattern of squares, which conditions the etheric body of our planet largely at the present time, whereas for the sacred planets, triangles condition the etheric body, we have to move on our Earth towards that spiritual condition of triangles and learn how to, as Master DK put it, to esoterically bisect the square, so that, in fact, the powers of the soul, which are sometimes called the triangles, you see, souls are called the triangles, interestingly enough, so that those powers really rule, and so that we can be helpful in recognizing the effects of triangles, how to invoke certain energies, what to do with those energies once they are evoked, once there is a response, how to direct those energies. All of this is part of our esoteric work. And of course, we are, engaged in a whole network of triangles, which are very much related to the sign Gemini, which is, I think, one of the Tibetans' conditioning astrological signs, and it certainly was for Alice Bailey, Mary Bailey, and Foster Bailey, and other people who were in that kind of work. How to use those energies of Gemini and Mercury in a beneficial way for the spiritualization of the human approach and the upliftment of human consciousness. And that's why we're studying all these things. We may be in the Esoteric Astrology book, but we won't be here forever. We will be here for a long time, I think, however. And then there are all these other references which talk about the triangularization, of the etheric body and in general the ethers of space. And we can learn this from the inside out. We can learn the occultism of triangularization, the occultism of triangularization. And so that's why we go academically, we go into this as deeply as we possibly can. So I just want to tune in, all of us, just a little bit here in the silence. And that our purpose, if we can sort of repeat that to ourselves, is to learn about the dynamics of triangles on many different levels and on inter-levels. In other words, triangles horizontal and triangles vertical. We're just at the beginning of our study, and in doing this, we're going to learn about a lot of spiritual centers and how they are related to other centers. In esoteric astrology, it talks about the great science of relationships. And sometimes I think, that that's the greatest of all the sciences, and everything we've got, whether it's rays or astrology or the chakras or whatever, is all part of this vast science of relationships, which just extends as far as our mind can take us. So, take notes as we go along and try to see what may be interesting to you and write things down if it helps you memorize or, type it or whatever. And all of these points in a fifth ray manner will impress themselves upon your mind, and you will begin to see the meaning of the interrelationships which we are studying. And of course, we're just studying just a few, compared to what there really is. As Master DK said, he couldn't really give us all the triangles. He just can't, it's beyond. But the important ones, even as you look at this map here of the solar logos, you see all these triangular relationships between the masters, not between all masters, but certain of them, and you see the three Buddhas of activity in their relationship to Sanat Kumara, and you see three cosmic logoi in their relationship to the solar logos, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And if you trace these lines, which have been put into the colors of the three aspects by Keith Bailey when he did this, then you can take a look and see what's related to what. For instance, Master KH and Master DK are definitely related to the Mahachohan. There's the triangle. And KH and the European Master are definitely related to the Mahachohan, and so it goes. But we see when we look at Master Jupiter, who is the oldest of all the masters, whatever that means, probably his origin of individualization is in the previous solar system, we do not see so many triangles of relationship. We're a little bit hard put to find them, but we do see one thing. We see that he's related to Master Moria and a European master. And these sort of blue and red lines show you that. Now, every one of these interrelationships has a story to tell and energies to express. And we always look for the first, second, and third aspects of energy when we study a triangle. And when we study a triangle, we realize that they are triangles in revolution. They're sometimes called that. And that means that at any point, either the first, second, or third aspect will be dominant. And we can pretty well imagine that in the beginning of the evolution of the triangle, it will be the third aspect dominant. Then the middle point will be the second aspect dominant, and finally a much shorter period when the first aspect is dominant. So keep some of those things in your mind as you're studying the triangles, and even as you're studying relationships that you as a human being may have with two other people. There's going to be something unique in that particular triangle. Now, our method is pretty much to spread light and to spread love, or goodwill, which is love in action. At the present time, that's what we're doing with these triangles, and to really utilize the great invocation, the third stanza, the 1945 stanza of the great invocation. That is, we are energizing our triangles network using that great invocation and thus spreading it, because it is the greatest instrument we have to facilitate the right externalization of the hierarchy and the right reappearance of the Christ. So the triangles work is inseparable from the use of the great invocation, at least as Master DK has presented it to us in a practical manner. But when you're studying the planet, the solar system, the local cosmos, and even beyond that, certain realms beyond that, which are so far beyond us that we can hardly know anything, then it's a question of structure, and we don't necessarily know all of the energies of these great sources that we're looking at when we look up into the starry heavens and the constellated heavens. So it's just, it's like having kind of a triangular awareness is what we're after here. And, it's a new way of perceiving. And not only are we perceiving academically, but we are engaged in practical work, which is, of course, maybe the most important of it all. So I'd just like to welcome those of you who are here, and that would be Al, hi, and Anne, and Annette, and Antoinette, and Bruno, Catherine, Chris, Frederick, George, Karen, and another Karen Griska, Karen Wilson, Catherine, Carrie, Marissa, Martha, Nienke, Sue, Tia, T.U., Vera, Winnie, and Zenaidi, and Ann Veronica. And over here on the staff side, we have BL, we have Michael Stacy, we have Tuija, and I'm over here too. So we'll try, if you have questions or thoughts, we'll try to catch those. Now, I want to go to the reading, and I never know how far we're going to get with the reading. The reading can be maybe like one page. It depends on what we're dealing with. This is number 34, but I just want to give us a little segue. He's talking about the shift which takes place. He says, this is interesting because every chakra, i.e. every kingdom in nature, i.e. every creative hierarchy of monads moves up in its placement, its functional placement within a system. In other words, give you an idea, like Venus is very connected with the solar plexus of our solar logos at this time. But before long, it will sort of take the place of Jupiter, and it will be very connected with the heart center of our solar logos, and Jupiter will move up to the heart in the head, and all of the various planets will assume a kind of functionality which is wider, deeper, more responsive, and more essential within the system. So, humanity, it says here, was at one time the correspondence to the solar plexus. That has to be in the very early days of animal man. And someday will shift the focus of its receptivity to the planetary heart center. But meanwhile, it has had a focus as the throat center, which it largely is still within our planet. And also the higher aspects of humanity are involved with the Ajna Center. So the functionality of the various centers increases in its potency as time passes. And all of this is under sort of this kind of law of mutation, we can say. Constant change and reorganization and the opportunity for evolution. And thus it is with all of us, too. We stand on the periphery of an ashram, maybe, and as we move within it, our role changes until finally maybe we will be among those that are trusted near the center of the ashram. So we're still the same individual, we're still the same unit of being, but we have gathered potency and skill and ability, and therefore we're given a higher functionality. Now, when this takes place, and humanity becomes the heart center. Now, even the rays of humanity will change. We may know from our studies that it is often the case that the fourth ray soul will transfer onto the second ray. Now, if humanity develops receptivity to the planetary heart center and is identified with the planetary heart center, it will be as hierarchy is now. And hierarchy, as it says here, when this takes place, the hierarchy will shift its focus of receptivity into the sphere of influence of Shamballa, so it will become, in a way, the heart within the head. And it says here, of this shift, the presence of the 12 petals lotus in the highest head center, the relating point between the heart center, between the shoulder blades, and the soul on its own plane is the guarantee. So, we see the analogy there, a hierarchy moving up to the heart within the head, and the heart within the head existing between the heart center and the soul. Now, the law of analogy, it's a great law, and it's the interpretive law for our planet and system, and when we look at the universe, we want to use the law of analogy. And if we want to be more specific about the law of analogy, then we use what's called the law of correspondences, which is a more intense and precise application of the law of analogy. Okay, so now we get to the point where we are today. I'm not reading all this stuff. That in black is what the Tibetan has written, and at different times I've written different things in red and purple and who knows what. So anyway, the following relations must be consequently borne in mind, he says. Okay, so let's see where we are with that. Now, some of this will be, let's say, quite familiar to you. The head center, Shamballa, is the planetary head center and is associated with the first ray. But of course, look, all of these chakras, all of these centers, all of these planets, all of these stars, they have all the 7 rays. There's nothing that doesn't. It's just a question of the emphasis, and the emphasis in Shamballa is particularly upon the 1st ray and the 7th ray. There are 3 great energies coming out of Shamballa. Purification, which has a lot to do with the 2nd ray, and the Shamballa is to a certain extent on the 2nd sub-level of the cosmic physical plane. We might say that in a way, I'm looking for, oh no, that's not it. I had that just a minute ago. Let's see if I can get there. I want to use Tuija's chart here. So this is here, and the computer's going to explode. It's got too much stuff in it. And somewhere here is, Tuija, you should be here. I should see this. Am I skipping over it? Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay, there we go. All right. So diagrams and the centers. All right, open, and we'll see where we are. Yeah, on the 2nd sub-level, it's as if Shamballa begins. And Shamballa, the most esoteric level of the cosmic physical plane, is on the monadic plane and the logoic plane. The great council chamber of Shamballa is on the logoic plane. But also, monads are all members of Shamballa, and they are found on the monadic plane. And the 5 planes below that belong to Brahma, and in a way are considered exoteric. But for people like ourselves, you can believe it that the atmic, the buddhic, and the higher mental plane are not at all exoteric. They are objectives for us to achieve. So let's see, where am I here? Right. Shamballa, 1st ray and 2nd ray and 7th ray are the emphases. And why do I say that? Because this is plane number 1, this is plane number 7, and this is plane number 2. And monads are also members of the sort of 6th kingdom of planetary lives. Maybe we have to include. Well, look, all the rays are there. And he's particularly emphasizing the 1st and 7th races, having to do with the will. The will is the goal. And in the beginning, we do have head center activity. But by the time, and that is the Adamic race, not the Hyperborean race, but the Adamic. And it's not a self-conscious race. You have to go through, theosophically, you have to go through the Adamic race and the Hyperborean race and the first half of the Lemurian race before you get individualization. But these are huge etheric-like creatures, and they developed long ago, and some of us had those kinds of physical bodies, not those who had individualized on the moon chain or in the previous solar system. Maybe on the moon chain and the previous solar system we had correspondences to these bodies, but not these particular bodies. So the will is the goal. It's the final pattern and purpose, an arrangement of energies. That is the goal. And of course, both the 1st and 7th ray are involved. And in a way, at first, the center at the base of the spine, it just keeps you in incarnation. It's not by any means the full development. Along with the head center, which is just beginning to appear and have life to it, and it kind of directs the mechanism. So the 1st center and the 7th center are both involved here. It is said that in the 7th root race, there's going to emerge out of the Pacific Ocean a great continent. This comes from the Rosicrucian Cosmoconception by Max Heindel. It's book, about 110 years old. I don't know if any of you have read that. It's a very interesting book, and he talks about the emergence of the great continent, Pacifica. Involved here is the energy of life and some kind of final synthesis, because we're dealing with the very highest aspect here, the fully unfolded head center, a great synthesis and the energy of life, but life itself is being. Let's pause on that for a minute. Life is being, and when we finally find ourselves, if we are allowed, within the point of tension we call Shamballa, we're going to know what life and being is all about, and the mysterious oneness takes over. And all 7 centers will be awakened and functioning, but there's never a time when every center is not at least pulsating with the minimum amount of form-sustaining life. In other words, if you have a chakra that's not even activated, there is death. So there has to be the activation of all chakras. It's just a question of how strongly they are activated. Now, like I said, we looked a little earlier at some of the things here. Let's see if, there it is. This is something that, okay, take a look here, and we talked about it, and this is Tuija's diagram, and it shows that the development of the highest 2 planetary schemes is the latest to occur. Much more rapid are these the development of the planetary schemes under Saturn, and we might call this whole system of a hexagon with a central Saturnian point as the esoteric Saturn. And down here, by the way, he gives some marvelous stuff. If you want to really check this out, it tells you which the dense physical planets are. So obviously we know quite a few of them: Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Mars, but Vulcan, which has sometimes been hypothesized to be an etheric planet, is in fact considered a dense physical planet, and tells you where the chain emphasis is and where the globe emphasis is. Now, if you look here, Earth and Mars are the only double 4s, and Venus is a double 5, and Mercury is a 4 and a 5. So all of these, DK has hidden so much occultism inside these diagrams and the things that he says around them. He doesn't say anything else. He just turns you loose and allows you to see if you can figure out what he's talking about. Remember that Cosmic Fire is a book that is only really for initiates, and by initiates I think he means initiates of the 3rd degree, but many people can benefit somewhat by studying Cosmic Fire. Okay, so here we have the climax of everything. You become, in a way, a shambolic being. Now, let me do a little ray thing here for a minute, and to see if you can understand this, as I tried to understand it too. The path of probation is ruled by the 6th ray and the 4th ray. The path of discipleship is, especially I suppose accepted discipleship, is ruled by the 3rd ray and 5th ray. The path of initiation is ruled by the 1st ray and the 7th ray. And over all of this is the synthetic indigo 2nd ray, which is the soul ray of our planet and of our solar system, and to which we are all learning to respond as units of love wisdom. So there are 7 centers awakened and functioning by the time we reach this climax. But in the first root race, way back there in Adamic times, and by the way, Adam and Eve and all that, that's very allegorical stuff. So if you want to read what Adam really is. You go into the secret doctrine and you go into Isis Unveiled, and there you will find the truer explanation of what has been presented in such a childish manner in the conventional religions. Okay, but what else are the people going to do? Because, we're not all Madame Blavatsky, are we? She was a becoming initiate of the fourth degree, and she could really explain these things and look at comparative religion and comparative philosophy and give us the big picture. People are interpreting all of these things quite literally and concretely at first, and then after many incarnations, as their mind begins to expand and their interpretive power begins to expand, they begin to understand some of the deeper implications. So in the first root race, these centers are, all of them, alive and faintly vibrating, like little saucers they've been described at. And which is the more active center? Well, maybe in the first root race it is the base of the spine, just to keep you alive. In the seventh root race, on our fourth chain, and let's see how we go here. In the seventh root race and the fourth chain, right here. So this is where we are. You are here, okay? Now each one of these, excuse me, each one of these is a globe lord, and they have their own monadic points of origin. So there are 49 great beings here. There are 7 greater beings, and there's one all-inclusive being that we call the scheme lord. We've got scheme lords, we've got chain lords, and we've got globe lords, and each one of them has its own variation on the one and only monad. So here we are, and if you go to Makara, where I've done, I guess for the first 1,000 or 1,100 pages of Cosmic Fire, a written analysis, not just a talking analysis, and you check out what I've said about these things. I think I point out some interesting things about the shapes and what they could mean. And I'm not going to get into that right now. But let's just say that within our own planetary scheme, we don't know much about the Neptune chain. We don't know much about the Jupiter chain. But all these other chains, pentagonal, hexagonal, triangular, some weird pentagram here, and the square, of course, they all tell us something about what's going on in these different chains, and this is our home at the present time. The fourth globe of the fourth chain in a scheme which is the fourth from the Sun, which is Vulcan, Mercury, Venus, and then the Earth, the fourth major scheme from the Sun. There may be some intra-planets in there, inside the orbit of Vulcan and all that, but we're not dealing with that right now. Okay, so anyway, the centers are alive. They're faintly vibrating, enough to keep us in the form. And in the seventh root race, all the centers are fully awakened. Now, the seventh root race is going to occur in the fourth round. And then we're going to go on and we're going to have rounds that are connected with the Mercury chain if everything goes in fairly sequential order. Right now, all of our rounds are that we know much about, anything about, are chain rounds, and we are in the fourth chain round. There'll be a fifth, and if we were lucky like Venus, who did Venus did her homework, she was finished after 5. Okay, but we'll probably go to 7, and then what DK says will be true about very full development by the time we reach our 7th round. And then we'll go on here, and then, well, I don't want to get off on the subject, but there are chain rounds and there are scheme rounds that go all the way around the whole planetary scheme. And maybe, who knows, maybe we'll only have to have 5 of those instead of 7, just as Venus has had 5 of those. All right, so that gives us an idea. And what I said, the kingdom of planetary lives, or perhaps more accurately, the kingdom of solar lives, the 7th kingdom. Maybe we can be beginning here to sense. Okay, let's just say beginning to sense and reach towards. Now, right now, we are members of just the human kingdom, aren't we? But as we begin to open these petals right here, and the petal number 7, 8, and 9, as they begin to thrill and to open, we start really to enter the kingdom of souls, which is the 5th kingdom. And when we are doing our studies of this nature and our meditations, that is what we're trying to do, to join the 5th kingdom. We have not yet, like the Chohans, joined the 6th kingdom of planetary lives, and we're so far, maybe we could say that the globe lords, the chain lords, even the planetary logoi, maybe they are members of the kingdom of solar lives. It's all a huge hierarchy, and we have to be accurate about what is in relation to what in a vertical sense. Now, I think I did point out to you earlier, but it's worth repeating, that if you go to page 844 of A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, you're going to see a marvelous tabulation which leads all the way up from the lowest forms of life all the way up to the planetary logoi, and it tells you, from all the way from the lesser builders up until we reach the planetary logoi and what they will become. Just the way we will become more than we are in terms of form, so will they. But I just want to make an important point. In terms of your essential identity never changes, okay? That's what I want to say. Pure being is causeless, or the cause only of itself. We cannot think about cause and effect when we think about the very essence of life. It is sometimes been called the causeless cause, and we are that. So any changes that occur in terms of evolution, they always occur in the realm of form. Denser form, medium form, very, very subtle form. They always occur in the realm of form, and they do not occur in the realm of essence. You have been what you have been and will be forever. And I know it's a strange thought that here we are as pure being forever, as the causeless cause, but I think we have to bear it in mind. All right. Now, we move on to the heart center, and we know that hierarchy is considered the heart center of the planetary logos, and instead of the second ray, instead of the first ray, it is the second ray. And I just want to say that upon the Buddhic plane, no, that's the cosmic Buddhic plane, that's going to be too much. Yeah, upon the Buddhic plane, there are many, many ashrams, and the interesting thing is that love wisdom expresses itself upon the Buddhic plane, and even though it's the 4th, and our monads express themselves upon the Buddhic plane. And I can show you the chart that sort of excuse me, sort of verifies that. It's the chart that we often turn to, but here it is. It shows you these creative hierarchies, and here are our hierarchy. We're called the initiates. We're called the lords of sacrifice. And solar angels also have their place upon this high level and are, we should say, in constant contact with our monads. Now, the root of our monads are up here on the 2nd level. But where we really start to express ourselves and our purpose as Lords of Harmony, it's here on the Buddhic plane, ruled by the fourth ray, the fourth plane. So keep all of these, I know it's a little bothersome to the mind, but keep these numerical correspondences in your mentality. And the reason to do it is that all of the interconnections in the great science of relations will be made clearer to you, to me, to whoever studies it in this way, and eventually there will develop a capacity, a capacity called pure reason. Pure reason belongs to the Buddhic plane, and it's not the same thing as reasoning, thinking, being logical, being reasonable. It's not that. It's something much more. It's what Master Moria calls straight knowledge. You just look at it and you know. You know the relationship, you look at it and you know. So that's the kind of intuitive apprehension of the place and function of all parts within a whole that you are trying to achieve in your consciousness. So, the heart center and the hierarchy, they're related, the second ray, and we're just about to begin the sixth root race. We're maybe only, I don't know, maybe 2,000 years away from the sort of beginnings of the sixth root race. According to Philip Lindsay, when a sub-race of a previous root race begins, then the next root race corresponding to the number of the sub-race also begins. In other words, we've exhausted, or almost exhausted, 5 root races: the Adamic, the Hyperborean, the Lemurian, the Atlantean, and the Aryan. And now we are on the 6th sub-race, beginning very, tentatively, and he says in the USA and Australia and some of these other places where colonies relating to the 6th sub-race are being planted. So we are learning how to use the abstract mind. Matter of fact, the kind of discussion we're having right now is all about the abstract mind, to considerable extent. So we are in right now, not just solidly 5 sub 5, we are in 5 sub 6. And corresponding to that number 6, the 6th root race also has its tentative beginnings. And the way I always think of it is this way: 5 sub 6 uses the abstract mind, and we're going to have to learn how to do that by building the Antakarana. And the 6th root race uses the intuition. So we may be, in a larger sense, quite a ways off from really cultivating the intuition, but in the 6th root race, it's going to be the major mode of apprehension. How long does the 6th root race last? It lasts a long time. So DK talks about looking ahead at the end of the 6th root race 10 million years from now. And early Atlantean times 12 million years ago. So it gives you a little bit of a perspective. Now, so true love is the goal here. And we're not just talking about, I could put these in planetary terms up here. I could say, okay, if it's ray 1 and 7, then I'm going to really look for absolutely Uranus and maybe Vulcan, that kind of thing. And, there's some complexity with it, but Uranus is the main planet, I think, for the 7th root race and for development in Shamballa. So, but now when we get down here to the heart center, what do we have? We have probably Venus, 2nd ray monad, Jupiter, 2nd ray soul, Neptune, 2nd ray monad. Now I want to point something out here that I think is, kind of interesting. Let's just say that Uranus, I'll do it this way. Uranus and the Earth both have first ray monads. Okay. And okay, good. And now Venus and Neptune both have second ray monads. Now, what is the monad, and is it, can we even deal with it? But let's just say that the monad is so much the essential you that almost everything you've got is derived from the monad and the ray of the monad. So I think that's very interesting, and I think I could find, I could go down the list and I could say Saturn and Mercury both have third ray monads, and I'll get into that. I'll get into that a little bit later. So it's the heart center that develops in our next root race. Do we think we really have the heart center developed in our Aryan root race? No. It's much more the throat center and the Ajna Center. It is the normal mentality that is developing in our Aryan root race, and maybe a little bit of contact with the solar angel who works on the fifth plane, since we're dealing, in fact, with the number 5. Okay, so love is the goal. Maybe we can call it love wisdom. He calls it love is the goal. We haven't achieved that yet. And the center of all of this will be Brazil. It'll be South America. It will, whose day has not fully come yet, but will come. I think, if I'm correct, Brazil has a fourth ray soul and a second ray personality. Now, one day it may be possible to talk about countries, nations, in terms of their monadic ray, but since most countries are just personalities pretty much anyway, we cannot talk yet about the monadic rays of the countries. So anyway, the energy of identification. Okay, that's what we're going to find in the 6th root race when the heart center is really developed, and maybe by that time a lot of humanity will have taken, the earth humanity will have taken its place within the hierarchy. This is my guess. Now the Christ, he was the great master of identification. It comes in on the first ray and the second ray, but now what was it? DK said, study John 17, I think it was. And it may, written by the evangelist that we call John. And you will find from the Christ the greatest statement regarding identification which exists. Now, when you're working between the second and third initiation, you've got to work on identification through contemplation. Now, when we start working with contemplation, normally there's a Cartesian split between the subject and the object. But when you start working with contemplation, then the subject and object begin to merge. We can all practice that, we should, and we can do that. And that's the first step toward becoming the other through identification. I've told the story, and you've heard the story, that Ramakrishna, he was so Pisces, so Aquarius, a high initiate, 4th or 5th degree, and probably 4th degree, becoming 5th degree, and he's crossing the river, and the master is beating his slave, and so Ramakrishna is crying out, "Who's beating me? Who's beating me?" See, that kind of sensitivity where you cannot tell the difference between yourself and another in terms of essence. That's Neptune, that's the Christ, that's identification. There are 6 centers functioning, and I guess that we would have to say, I don't know exactly, but I would just say that the head center is probably not fully functioning, but where it definitely is when we reach the 7th root race and the initiation associated with that, probably the 7th initiation. The focal point of egoic consciousness of divinity, and I would say also, plus the monad, and we're into the 5th kingdom, the kingdom of God, and pushing into the 6th kingdom. Okay. Sorry for the spelling. Kingdom. Okay, pushing into the 6th kingdom. Remember, the 6th kingdom is the kingdom of planetary lives, and the 5th kingdom is the kingdom of souls. But you've got to remember that the spiritual triad is the true soul. Now, when you look at the map, you say, well, this is my soul here, isn't it? This egoic lotus built on the higher mental plane is my soul? Well, yes and no. This is considered actually to be the true detached ego or soul, which is the expression or reflection of the threefold monad. So when we get into this higher triadal kind of consciousness, we're dealing with the kingdom of souls as it pushes into the 6th kingdom of planetary lives. So by that time, and it's in the 6th root race, you really are working as a master or a very high initiate, and you are focusing within your true ego, which is the spiritual triad, and you're a member of the 5th kingdom. Now, let's just say you do not become a member of the, let's see, I don't know, no, it's not going to work. 6th kingdom until the 6th initiation. And, in other words, the ascension, it's called the ascension. That's the true 6th initiation. Okay, I'll do one more, and then we'll finish off the others. Gosh, we won't even have done, half a page, but that's okay because there's a lot of information buried in this little tabulation. And, what's important is you have to figure out what you're working on. You, the disciple, in your groups, striving to serve, striving to develop, where are you? What are you working on? Now, the next one is member of. Okay, sorry. So anyway, coming up in another 2,000 years is this real emphasis upon the 2nd ray, and let's just say, as Christ reappears, there is preparation for this stage. Okay, and let's just say a big 2nd ray is developed. A big 2nd ray is developed during this age of Aquarius, and who knows what's going to happen during the 25,000 year age of Aquarius, because now remember this, Aquarius is the sign of universal love. And Pisces, interestingly enough, in this interesting reversal, is the sign of pervasive wisdom. So universal love, Aquarius, pervasive wisdom, Pisces, and they're both ruled by Jupiter in an important sense, as we know. Now I'll do one more, the Ajna Center. It's interesting. I think it's the higher brackets of humanity that are associated with the Ajna Center, especially the new group of world servers. And it's no accident that the servers are coming into expression at this time. It has to do with the 5th root race, and intuition is the goal. Now, interestingly, when you look at the map, real love is going to be found up here on the monadic plane. Real love, reflecting the cosmic astral plane where, as far as we're concerned, the purest form of love exists, only for us, but, not for higher beings. So the monadic level will help us develop real love, and the intuition will be the buddhic level. And the will especially will be the logoic level as it is reflected in the plane of spiritual will, which is the atmic plane. Now, all of this, it may be the happy hunting ground here of the masters, and they may hang out here and they may focus their consciousness here, but for us, it's a very high stage. These ordinary stages for them are very high for us, and we have to build the antikarana to get there. Okay? And DK is teaching us how to do that. So the fifth ray, see, humanity is interesting because it's sometimes called to be the Ajna Center, sometimes the throat center, and we'll see something else here as well. So intuition is the goal. Now, how do we get to intuition? Well, you can get there from the astral plane, but Master DK prefers that you think your way with pure reason into the intuition and thereby develop what is called buddhi-manas. So basically what happens is that the higher three levels of the mind combine with some of these lower levels of the Buddhic plane to produce buddhi-manas, which begins to develop after the third initiation, particularly, and is well developed by the time you take the fourth initiation. All of that is far ahead, but we might as well know where we're going. Now, the fifth ray, oftentimes by the Tibetan, is called the energy of initiation. And it's very interesting. When you take the third initiation, which is the first real initiation, the fifth ray rules that initiation. Seventh ray, first initiation. Sixth ray, second initiation. Fifth ray, third initiation. Fourth ray, fourth initiation. And first ray, the fifth initiation. And third ray, the sixth initiation. And second ray, the seventh initiation. Turn to page 340 in Rays and Initiations, and you will find that, okay? So it's the energy of initiation, and we have to develop the power of inclusiveness, which is interesting, right? Because it's very much a second ray factor. So we absorb the solar angel with its inclusiveness, and we begin to become the true initiate. We have to develop our abstract mind, and we're on our way to the full intuition, which over the next few millions of years, we will really develop. As I've said before, humanity's present personality is the fifth ray, and its soul is the fourth ray. So there you have sort of buddhi-manas, right? Fourth ray soul, fifth ray personality. Now, go a little farther for when humanity rises up and takes up a new kind of chakric position, and you will have a second ray soul for humanity. It will take the place of the hierarchy presently, and a fourth ray personality. So everything is moving on and up and changing rays as it does so. 5 centers are rapidly awakening, and I don't know, what should we say? Certainly, the base of the spine, it's not really fully awakening, but by the time you reach the third degree, it really starts. The head center is not fully awake. The other centers are awake, but the sacral center is waning. So there's some transferences that are going on there. Sacral center, which is the most material center, interestingly enough. The most material center, sacral center, it is waning down, and in its place, development within this complicated thing called the head center is taking its place. It's the focal point for personality. See, the Ajna Center is many things. And at first, the integrated personality depends very much on the integrating power of the Ajna Center. But later, the Ajna Center gives you entree into the soul. It gives you entree into the spiritual triad. So from another point of view, it's connected with the higher of our centers, high up in our energy system. Real personality he tells us, not just some traits that are gathered, requires a mental focus. And this is one of the mental centers. It starts out being ruled by Venus, and before long, it's ruled by Mercury and also by Neptune as we go on. This center seems to have active in it many, many rays that develop in a progressive manner. So, to just say, oh, well, it's always the fifth ray, it's not always the fifth ray. But it's very important in the third initiation to have this center ruled by the fifth ray developed. By the time we start reaching the crucifixion, this center is ruled by the fourth ray and Mercury. So remember what I talked about, the law of mutation, that everything is constantly changing positions and regathering in new and more archetypal relationships. Okay, so real personality requires the mental focus. It's the human kingdom, the fourth in nature, and the goal will be the kingdom of souls. All right. I won't even ask Michael how many pages we've gone through because I know we've only gone through a half a page. But and you can say, oh my gosh, what a lot of details are here. And I will say, yeah, there are. But, the second ray on which we are doing a lot of working here is called the ray of meticulous entirety. Okay. And that's what Master DK operates on. And that's what we're learning how to do as well. So, I'm not sure we're going to be able to meet on the 20th. I suspect not, because it is the day of the entry into the sign Aries. It is the big equinox day, and we'll let you know if that's any different, but I suspect that we will not be able to do anything on the 20th. Along this line, that is. So 4:55 to 4:55, and this day has been the 13th, and the next will be number 35, and I'm not sure when it will be. So we'll have to talk about that, and it would be the morning schedule if we do anything, but I just don't have enough presence of mind at the moment to tell us. I forget, Tuija, when is the equinox? What time of day? Do you remember? I'm having a little trouble remembering.
I'm checking 1 second.
Okay, good.
I will check.
Okay, so this is number 35, morning schedule, and I'll just say if we do this. Now, how do you study this stuff? Well, you have to use your memory, no question about it, and you can, you use your pen, you draw relationships between things, or if you have other ways to work with the computer in a kind of formal geometric manner, then you do that. It's a long-term process. Long-term. So don't expect that overnight all these relationships are going to pop into your mind. They're not going to, nor into my mind. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, dear, go ahead. Yeah. When is it?
Yes. So we start 8:10 p.m. GMT.
Okay. Well, we'll let you know. Oftentimes when we're so close to the big Aries equinox or Libra equinox, we want everybody to be thinking along those lines and don't want to complicate the consideration too much.
Yeah, and because there is then after 4 hours there is going to be also full moon. That's why we don't have on Wednesday and Thursday anything else.
Okay. Well, then since we're going to have an equinox and a full moon within 4 hours of each other, probably that's where our concentration will have to go. And, there's going to be a Gosh, I don't even know when I would do the pre-full moon. Anyway, we'll figure that out. Okay, we'll figure that out. And now,
Michael, pre-full moon is on Tuesday at 8 p.m. GMT.
Okay.
Then 8:10 we have the next day on Wednesday. The equinox.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have after 4 hours, starting at 12 midnight,
GMT.
the full moon.
GMT, 12 midnight GMT. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we will try not to crowd the schedule so that we can keep our minds straight, because, you know, when we're dealing with an equinox or a solstice, it's a really important turning point, and Aries is the beginning of the astrological year. So we just want to be as focused as we can be. Well, look, you've got plenty to think about. You know, we've got these 100 pages or so on triangles in the middle of Esoteric Astrology, and you can review this. It's just a few pages, but on the basis of all that we have spoken of, you can do this. And I guess if I can get this to BL or Joe, this particular document, then maybe it can be made available for others. I know it's a little bit complex and there's a lot of interweaving going on, but maybe it would help you study if that's what you would like to do. Okay.
Michael.
Yes, BL.
If you send it to me, I can post this document along with the video and the audio there on Makara.
Okay, BL, I'll do that. Now remember that this document keeps on growing. Not very fast, okay, but it does keep on growing, so that what I send a month ago does not have as much in it as what comes a month later. You know, friends, it takes...
Well, what I'll do is I'll post it up towards the top of the page, and then every couple of weeks or so, you can send me the revised version, and I can just replace it. So it'll be a document in progress, but it will be there towards the top of the page. Okay?
That sounds real good. Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, friends, I know, just forgive me for this, you know, I know I'm using a lot of Mercury here. There's a lot of associations going on here, and the more you use the fifth ray to drill into the meaning of each one of these little items, like every planet is an item, every chakra is an item, every solar system is an item, the more you use the fifth ray to beam in on these items, the easier it will be to relate them into a meaningful pattern. And remember what it says of the second ray. The second ray is the ray of the divine pattern. Okay, now this is going to be posted on Makara and eventually on YouTube. So I know that it would be very hard to absorb all this in one hearing. The thing to do is to download it from Makara, and if you have a couple, 3 hours, just go through it, stop the video when you want to think about something, and then go ahead with the video when you've thought about it sufficiently. Or you can do that in groups if you choose. Okay? Okay, friends, now the next step that we have is that you may have a question or a comment that you would like to offer about these matters. So I'm looking for your hands or for your microphone or whatever. Okay, well, you're getting a baptism in esoteric astrology here. There's no question about it. But remember the one principle: everything is related to everything else. In occultism, everything is related to everything else. So no matter where you start, you're going to find yourself able to reach any other point. The work of Master DK is like one great sphere of knowledge and wisdom. And you can get any place on it from starting at any point. So that's my way of saying whatever you want to say is relevant. Okay? Okay. Goodness. Okay.
They either fully understand or they're completely baffled.
I think, Mike, that the first of the two options must be correct. Full understanding. After all, why do you bother us with questions and comments? We get it. Okay. No, but I think, obviously it requires study, doesn't it? Now, there's a lot of different ways to be on the second ray. You can be on the Buddha side of it, the wisdom side. You can be on the pure love side, which is the Christ side. Or you can be on the DK side, which is meticulous entirety. And that's kind of what our little trip here has been all about, meticulous entirety. So maybe not all, usually when you study DK's books for quite a while, this ray of the divine pattern thing, the ray of detailed unity, as he calls it, it's part of you, and maybe in the church there's more people who are on the pure love side, I don't know, and maybe in the Buddhist religion, more people on the pure wisdom side, but some attention to the details and how they unify themselves will be very useful. So did anything strike you at all? Anything of interest? Anything come to your mind that you would like to deal with?
Well, everything is energy or life, which are both synonymous. And as such, everything is a chakra within another chakra within another chakra.
Yeah, and that's an interesting idea. It's that, what do you call it? Well, it's hylozoism in one way, but there's a word for it. It has to do, I'm forgetting the word, but it means everything, the lesser reflects the greater, reflects the greater, reflects the greater. It almost came to me. It has an L in it. It's an obvious thing. What is the, we talk about a fractal, the fractalization of the universe, that everything is the lower reflects the higher, but not with as much clarity as the higher possesses. So the lower you go, there is always going to be a reflection of the archetype, but it's going to be less pronounced. Now the question is, does that go on infinitely? And I would say, no, it doesn't. I tend to think of every universe as having a higher and a lower limit, whereas true reality does not have a higher and lower limit. But that's a philosophical question, and, not so much what we've been studying here. So basically, what we've just gone through in terms of triangles is Shamballa, hierarchy, humanity, the main triangle. This is the triangle that we are all working on at this time. And, somewhere here, I don't even know where I would find it, but let's see if I go to open. I'm not sure that I'm going to find my triangles here. No, I've been doing too much work on the coming conference where love to have you present in person. I'm sure I've said that to you many times. Well, anyway, as you know, there are three great centers, and humanity, hierarchy, and Shamballa are the three. And that's what we've just been talking about today. Now, do you have Shamballa in you? You do. Do you have hierarchy in you? You do. And we certainly have humanity. It's just a question of the balance with which those energies are found within us. Okay? Anybody? So thank you, Mike. Anybody on staff that would like to say anything further? Tuija, would you like to say anything? I'm really I'm begging everybody. You want to say anything? Then who wins? I mean, when nobody talks, do I win or do you win? You know, who wins?
Michael,
okay.
I was just thinking, could we look again at the big chart and to study a little bit more careful or more intense about these lines, how they are with the hierarchy and with the masters.
Okay.
No,
well,
the other one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. I try to find it.
For instance, if we would study, if we would look about Master DK.
Yes. Okay, let's see if I can, yeah. So here we are, and maybe I can make it just a tad bigger. You know,
because I am sure it is not clear for us that we would remember these by heart, because it's really interesting to look how who is under whom and who are really connected together.
Yeah. It is. I mean, and you know, there are a number of these European masters, and if you read that book, well, it's called The Initiate in the Dark Cycle, I think. So there's the Initiate in the New World, and the Initiate in the Dark Cycle, and it's supposedly written by a disciple of Master KH or something like that. Anyway, there is a European master that is in here somewhere, and he obviously is on the second ray, and I think he's called Sir Thomas. And of course, you know, it suggests that he is a master who was Sir Thomas More, you know, who, well, he was a great force around the time of Henry VIII, and he went against Henry VIII on the doctrine of divorce, and they, you know, cut off his head and all the rest of it. But anyway, he seems to have been an important character who has this home in England where Master DK and Master KH all showed up, and some of the other masters, and they had a meeting. So there are a number of European masters, and one or two of them are on the third ray, and one or two of them is on the second ray, and I think that's who this is. Interestingly, a little bit in advance of Master KH, who is connected here. Let's see. Well, of course, this is the great triangle of hierarchy, right? The Manu, the Christ, and the Mahachohan. This is the controlling triangle of the hierarchy. But there are other triangles here, and Master Moria, Master KH, and apparently now, the Venetian master, who was, Paul Veronese. He was an Italian artist on the third ray. So there's the triangle.
Yeah, one can find his art, actually, in the internet.
Yes, and also a picture of him, you know, but of course, here's what we're told, that many of the Maya Virupas, which the masters have, are replicas of how they looked when they took the fifth initiation. So, you know, simply because we find the historical figure does not mean that we have the physical image of the master as that master is now. Anyway, Master DK, you know, there he is. He's down at the bottom. Yeah.
So, but if we study this, what is for me very interesting, if we look about these four masters, Seraphis Bey, Hilarion, Jesus, and the unnamed. I cannot see from my mobile what does it say there. But anyway, look. So from Christ, there is a direct line to Seraphis and Jesus.
Right. That's right. 4 and 6.
And then from Manu, there is direct line to the seventh ray master and to the Hilarion.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, we see the ray lines distinguished. And it's yeah, I've noticed that before, and yet every one of these four is related to the third ray master, who contains them all, as it were, within his ashram, just the way he is contained by the Maha Chohan. So there are all these, you can make a number of triangles out of the relationship between the Venetian master and Serapis, Hilarion, Jesus, and I think it just says unnamed or something like that.
But look, there is not Manu, from Manu, there is not line to the Venetian master.
That's correct. It's intercepted by the European master. That's interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know, is there a mistake in that?
The way to tell us, we have to go into the, if something is missing, we'll find it in the original map. And if we say, these things were proofread by Master DK, especially, the intricate stuff was proofread. So let's just go into Cosmic Fire and see whether
Can you check that? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can't check it at the moment. I can't, it would be, I can't do it at the moment. Yeah, but we can do that. We can do that. Okay. Yes, it's fascinating to look at this, really. And look at this. Here's the Manu. Here's Master M, Moria, and here's Master DK. And Master DK talked about having something of the first ray in his triadal nature. I think that's very, very interesting. And in a way, the fact that you've got straight lines between the Manu, Jupiter, and Master Moria shows that they have a triangle. Now, Master Jupiter is India. Master Moria is India. We call Darjeeling Moria's town. And I'm not sure about the Manu, maybe so. So there's just so much hidden here. And by the way, there's some invisible things here too. There's supposed to be 3 circles around Sanat Kumara above these 3 Kumaras. And they are called the Esoteric Kumaras, okay? And they keep on rotating, all right? So that's an important one. And I wouldn't be surprised by the law of analogy that we wouldn't have over here 3 circles connected like the Esoteric Kumaras connected with the Solar Logos. If you take out 7, let's say, take out 7 pennies and put them surrounding a single penny in the middle, you're always going to get a hexagon surrounding the one in the center, which is very, very interesting. The hexagonal and the one in the center. So look, there's a whole... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just again looking these that the third ray is under the solar logos. Are they then the planetary logoi? When you go
these are
higher.
not. These are not. These are the.
I cannot see your mouse. What are you
doing? Okay, how's that?
Okay, yes.
Okay,
That's right.
they each are. They are the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost as parts of the solar logos, and each one of them contains a triangle of planetary logoi. Now, let me give you an example. We have this being that it says active intelligence. It's the highest correspondence of the Holy Ghost in our solar system. And it contains 3 planets: Saturn, the mental body, Mars, the emotional body, and Earth, the physical body. Now, the same is true over here. 3 planets are contained: Jupiter, Neptune, and Venus in the love, wisdom circle. He doesn't give the 3 planets for the father aspect, but I suspect that Neptune, Vulcan, and Pluto are involved, and I expect that Mercury is just running between all of them back and forth. So of the major planets that we have. So look, the law of analogy here is tremendous when we begin to try to interpret the higher parts of our solar system.
So then the 3 circles underneath,
Yeah.
Are they the Ray Lords, or what are these?
These are the Ray Lords. All these are the Ray Lords. These.
So are they representing then the planets?
Yes, that's correct.
Planetary logo.
Yeah, that's correct. That's what they do. They represent
because
the
it's so
planetary logo.
interesting if we look our planetary logos, so that then we have this third ray point there, or this triangle. It is affecting to our planet, but not the first ray directly, and not even the second ray directly.
Well, here's the thing. Something from the first ray passes through this third ray being. I can show you, it's in Esoteric Psychology, volume 2, and it's right around, it's one of my favorite pages, so I hope that I don't make it stupidly. Here it is. And this is, give you an example. It's all about suffering in our solar system. Okay, so here it tells you about our planetary logos and how he didn't like his job. And the solar logos kept him there and pretended, the solar logos pretended, right, that he didn't even hear the planetary logos beg to be released from this job. So the planetary logo says, I looked for peace, for light, for scope to serve, to prove my love and to reveal my power. Light there is none, peace is not found, let me return, and now the solar logos doesn't pay any attention. But he who sat upon the throne turned not his head, he seemed not e'en to listen nor to hear, but from, now, okay, so the solar logos turns away, and here is the sacrifice. But from the lower sphere of darkness and of pain, a voice came forth and cried, we suffer here. We seek the light. We need the glory of an entering God. I can find no other word except the last two to express the ancient symbols from which I am translating. Lift that, now these lower lives, they're talking to our very unhappy planetary logos. Lift us to heaven. Enter, O Lord, the tomb. Raise us into the light and make the sacrifice. Break down for us the prison wall and enter into pain. The Lord of life returned. He liked it not, and hence the pain. So this is the explanation of why the psychology of our planetary logos is that of the divine rebel. Now, in the next paragraph, there's a triangle. The same conditions which blend the law of sacrifice with pain and sorrow and difficulty are found also on the planet Mars and the planet Saturn. Earth, Mars, Saturn. They are not found on the other planets. Those who have read The Secret Doctrine and A Treatise on Cosmic Fire with understanding know that our Earth is not a sacred planet. However, Saturn, Mars, and our Earth, this is really interesting, constitute in a curious esoteric manner the personality of a stupendous ray life, whose energy is that of the third ray. So you get, that's that green circle. There are, as has been stated elsewhere, 7 sacred planets, but 10 planetary schemes, and in 3 cases, those of 3 major rays, 3 planets constitute the personality of each ray life. And then he goes on just a little bit more. He says, some esoteric thinkers believe that there are 12 planets to be considered in our solar system, and there is a basis for their conclusion. The personality of this third ray life is as follows: mental body Saturn, astral body Mars, physical body Earth. And then he goes on to tell you that Uranus, Jupiter, and Venus are similarly connected with another life, and it's obviously the second ray, the sun aspect. So, and then there's a few planets left out, and you have to figure out what they are. But keep in mind this page 89, rather 99 in Esoteric Psychology Volume 2, and it tells you about what's going on here. Can you see this? Each one of these has 3 major planets in its personality expression. So we can think of Saturn, we can think of Mars, we can think of Earth, but behind it is a huge third ray life. And all of them are part of this being. So, things get really interesting as you ascend to the higher levels of our solar system. Okay, now let's...
So our...
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. And then someone else wanted to talk.
Michael, I just wanted to answer Tuija's earlier question. I've got Initiation Human and Solar open, page 48, one of the original versions of this document. And these lines appear to be an accurate depiction of what it says on page 48, Initiation Human and Solar. It also has a little caveat that says, this diagram is an outline of a portion of the hierarchy at the present moment and gives only the outstanding figures in connection with human evolution. A similar diagram from the standpoint of the Diva evolution would be differently arranged.
Right.
Exactly. The connecting lines indicate force currents.
Exactly. Very good. Yeah, this is it. Okay. And as you see, your question then, Tuija, was whether from the Manu, and it doesn't look like that line from the Manu hits the what's his name, Paul Veronese. It doesn't look like it. Correct? You see?
Yeah, it goes straight.
Yeah,
and that's very interesting to look that there are certain masters, like this Seraphis Bey and the Jesus. They are straightly connected to Christ. There could also look the 7th ray master, but yes, there's the 4 masters are connected to.
Yeah. Well, let me say something about that. That both Serapis Bey, number 4, and Jesus, number 6, are on their way to Sirius because they are lords of compassion rather than masters of the wisdom. They are masters, but they're called lords of compassion. And then D.K. says of the Christ, no matter where his other duties may take him, onto the ray path and so forth, he will eventually go to Sirius. So 2, 4, 6, all going to Sirius eventually. These 2 arriving sooner and the Christ later. Interesting, I think. Okay, well, look. All right. So, look, we've been digging into things here, and there's just so much to learn and so much to know. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we have our little closing meditation? Excuse me. Oh, there's a hand. I see a hand. Karen. Okay, go ahead, Karen.
Yeah. Why is the Christ going to Sirius?
Well, probably we don't know why that is, but Sirius is also called the cosmic Christ. So I'm going to give you an example of a triangle. Sirius, the solar logos, and the Christ, all at 3 very different levels. And that is, it's in his cosmic Christhood that he would be going to that great second ray monad, which is Sirius. So, Sirius has, in my view, exactly the same rays as Venus. A second ray major monad, a 6th ray minor monad, a 5th ray soul, probably a 2nd ray personality, then the 4th ray comes, and, maybe 7th ray physical nature. But Venus is the planet which most represents Sirius, and I think their ray structure is very similar, and the Christ is called the morning star. Venus is called the morning star. Sirius is called the morning star. You know, there's definitely a relation between them. We could even say another relationship, triangle, is Sirius, Venus, and the Christ. So, you know, we couldn't know the final reasons, but we can see that the rays are correct for him to go there. Because Sirius is our local cosmic Christ. And
Does it have any, and with Sirius, and I can't remember where I heard this or how it was stated, has to do with development, a greater development of manas?
correct, because through its fifth ray soul. Through its fifth ray soul. And the solar angels come from Sirius. And look at the numbers of Sirius. When you look at the solar angels, their numbers are 2 and 5. Now, go to Sirius, where they are developed out of humanity, and the main numbers are 2 and 5. So from the numerological correspondences, those are the correct destinations. And although, let's just say the people who need more manas, like let's say the Master Jesus, the Master Serapis, and we're talking about a very high level of manas, okay? Not the kind of manas that we talk about. They go to Sirius, but ultimately Sirius is in line with their highest development along the soft ray line. So okay, well, you know, okay, I'll just say it. Venus is the home of the sixth ray Lord. What that means is that the submonadic ray of Venus is the sixth ray, and then when we get to the top of it all, up on this level, then we find that Venus has the second ray. It's exactly the same. You need all of that devotion to get to Sirius. And we're called blissful dancing points of fanatical devotion. Those are the points that go towards Sirius. But then after the sixth ray is developed in a very high manner, then the second ray of the cosmic Christ takes over. Everybody, every star, every planet, in my view, has 2 monadic rays. One of them corresponds to the 7 circles on the monadic plane. Let's see if I can, here there'll be triangles, but it's the same deal. Here's 7 on the monadic plane, and the higher monadic ray stands for the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost on the logoic plane. And every one of us has 2, one on the monadic plane and one on the logoic plane. I'll give you an example. St. Paul, he was really big on fanaticism. He was absolutely a fanatic. Okay, he had a 6th ray soul. Then on the road to Damascus, where he, you know, basically he was out to get Christians. He wasn't very nice to them, you know, he would kill them and so forth. He has this experience, and it prepares him to take initiation on the second ray in his soul nature. But that is not the top. He's the head of the 5th ray ashram. You have to have a Chohan on the 5th ray. Okay, but you can't have a 5th ray monad on this level. You can only have it here. So his submonadic ray allows him to direct the 5th ray ashram. But, and DK tells us, he is one whose motto is, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. So he's got an ultimate 1st ray monad, and he made a big statement that DK says was completely misunderstood by everybody. He says, I was caught up into the 3rd heaven as it reflected the 7th heaven. The 7th. So here is the 7th heaven. He's a 1st ray monad. Here is his head of the ashram. He's a 5th ray submonad. And down here on the soul level, he has the 2nd ray, because he makes all these beautiful statements about buddhi and about love and so forth. His sixth ray turned into the second ray. He probably had some kind of, I don't know, struggling fourth ray personality. Probably his mind was on the fifth ray, his astral body definitely on the sixth ray, and who can say about the physical body, but he traveled everywhere, so maybe it was third ray. So that's how I arrive at the rays of St. Paul with two monadic rays. I hope that's clear, or clearish anyway. and you too, and everybody has got those two rays. Now, you know, basically at the conference, we're going to have a review on the monadic ray. Last year and by the way, there is, I think, BL, do you know, we have, Olivia had Mar make that, a video of all our stuff on the monad. So do we have that on the, do we have that on Makara?
It's on YouTube.
YouTube. Okay. And I wonder, do we have it on Makara as well? Anyway, you can see what we said about. We don't have it on Makara. No?
No, Mar and Olivia were putting all that stuff on YouTube, and none of it from the conference has gone on to Makara.
Well, we've got to get that up there. Anyway, you know, somehow we have to remember there's just so many things. Anyway, you can see what we said about it, Karen, and we're going to do a little review on that this time in our Advancing Seven Ray seminar. Okay, I will.
Great, thank you.
Okay, you bet. Okay.
And Veronica has written, the diagram suddenly became three-dimensional, like a DNA helix.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Whatever.
And then Leslie, Leslie has written, beautiful commentary on the Lords of Compassion, quote, at the full moon of Taurus, the great Lord Christ, with the Lord of Compassion, the Buddha, and the Lord of the world at Shamballa, create a triangle of light. This light is released at the full moon of Gemini to all humanity, unquote. And this is from The Legend of Shamballa by Torquem Saradarian.
Okay, well, it's a very lovely statement, and of course that triangle does exist. The Lord of the world, the Buddha, and the Christ, and much could be said about it. It's very interesting. The Christ takes up the role of Gemini, the Buddha takes up the role of Taurus, and the Lord of the world is the first ray point. So yes, that is a very important one. Good. Okay, I think we've gone on quite a bit, so maybe we should. Well, you know, this is deep material. What can I say? You could study your whole life for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, even what the Tibetan has written with Alice Bailey, and you wouldn't get it all, you know, and none of us would. But gradually, it will all fill in if we have the persistence. Now, you sometimes might think that the second ray on which Master DK finds himself is kind of a soft ray, and, you know, you don't expect too much follow through. But I want to point out something here, if I can find it very quickly, about what he says about the seventh ray. Okay. How do you spell leeway? That's it. All right. Okay. So here's what he says. This is on the will that brings fulfillment. It's under Leo. The will which brings fulfillment demonstrates through the second ray. Now notice this. By means of that driving force which enables the second ray soul steadily to achieve its goal, relentlessly pushing forward, permitting itself no let-up or leeway until the desired goal is reached. Now he said also to Assagioli, you have the will like tempered steel of your second ray soul. So whereas the first ray may crash through the wall, the second ray has a different method. And if we turn to esoteric psychology and the second ray, maybe page 202 or thereabouts, second ray, he'll say, the student on this ray is ever unsatisfied with his highest attainments. No matter how great his knowledge, his mind is still fixed on the unknown, the beyond, and on the heights as yet unscaled. So if you put this together with the no let up or leeway, you see the way the second ray can work until it becomes omniscient. Omniscient. And here's what I want to say about this. First ray, omnipotence. Second ray, omniscience. Third ray, omnipresence. So every once in a while, friends, go back to this little section on Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1, right around page 200, and for about 10 pages, it tells you all about these 7 rays in a very understandable manner. And if people want to know about the 7 rays, you don't have to read a complex book. I wrote one of those. DK is even more so. You can go right here to his little synopsis of the 7 rays, starting right at page 200, I suppose, page 200, 201, right there. Read down for 10 pages, and you'll see the essence of the rays as they apply psychologically. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. That's the place to go. All right, now let's see. I think Aunt Veronica, she spoke. And, it's amazing what can happen in the psyche. Things can happen. Thank you, Leslie, for that quotation. And, okay. Thank you, Karen, for your question. And now, now I think we better hasten. Otherwise, we're going to be here the whole night. There's enough even on a few pages to talk about it the whole night, but okay, we're not going to do that right now. Now tomorrow, in the, let's see, what is today? Is today Wednesday, isn't it? Okay, tomorrow, Reappearance of the Christ morning schedule. That's our broadcast. Friday, the Dissipation of Glamour webinar morning schedule. Saturday, we have the Soul of Nations with readings from the Destiny of the Nations morning schedule. And Sunday, the hierarchical, attracting money for hierarchical purposes. And then, we start getting into all the full moon stuff. And when you deal with the beginning of the spiritual year in Aries, it's a strong energy. Okay, Tuija, is there anything you want to say before I kind of close it down and get into the meditation here that you'll be leading?
No, I don't have anything. I was just thinking if you would be leading because my connection is cutting.
Okay. All right, I'll do it. It's going to be quick. It's not going to take a long time. But first of all, I have to find it, don't I? Okay, so let's see. I go to something called Pictures, and I will find it. I think my poor computer is just kind of chugging along here, flashing red and saying, unload me, unload me. Okay. You can get overstuffed on the second ray, be careful. All right, so this is, these are the images that we use, and I'm just going to use a few. That's all. All right, so just a few images. So let's all of us, sorry, just visualize this kind of image that we've got here with the soul center and the master decay on the base of the triangle on the higher mental plane, where they work probably on the second subplane, second subplane, response to group vibration. And then one of the vertexes of the triangle is, it's an inverted triangle pointing downward. It touches your major head center. And from this triangle, we imagine a downflow of energy from the soul and from the master through the head and through all the chakras. It's kind of light orange yellow color, and we are told to imagine this completely pervading the physical body and to bathe in this color like we would bathe in the waters of the sea. And that will help us with our life problem. And certainly we have them. Remember, the very first color of the egoic lotus is that orange color. And that's the fundamental color, sort of blending the fifth ray, especially, and, well, that particularly. So it's one of the ways of being infused by the soul and by the energy of the master. And we connect with the triangle, maybe the true spiritual triad hovering above the square. It would be our spiritual will, our spiritual intuition, our spiritual mind, abstract mind, and we can begin to contact as those energies pervade and descend. So we feel very infused right now by those higher energies, and we think of our own little network, not in detail right now, but how it is connected to the whole network on Earth. Many hundreds, thousands of triangles. It's a real thing. And it connects with the Buddhas of activity in Shamballa. But even beyond that, the whole network in the solar system and the network that unites our sun with two others in the seventh solar system, and beyond that and beyond that. It's all a huge spatial network of etheric triangles, the ethers of space. So just soak in that for a little while, steep yourself in that. Triangles everywhere, and even at the very, as it were, top of the universe, the perceiver, the perceived, and the perceiving, the fundamental triangle of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, beyond any imagination that we might be able to bring forth. So we live in these vast networks of triangles, and we will close our little alignment here with the great invocation, which also involves, of course, the light, the love, and the power, and their anchorage into humanity. The major triangle of light, love, and power anchoring in humanity. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, friends, that'll be it for tonight. Thank you for being present. It was about 2 hours, not too bad, and a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn, and as you go, it gets easier because you have these landmarks in your mind, and these are points that always are there, and they can relate to the things which are not yet so secure. And then, you'll just know more and more of the wholeness of things. So maybe we see you tomorrow morning for the reappearance of the Christ meditation, and want to thank you for your attendance tonight. And we'll have this, we where do we post these, BL? I think they show up on Makara, I think.
Yes, they do. There's a page for the Ask broadcast. There's a separate, and within that heading there on the top line menu, there is a separate one for the Triangle webinars, and then a separate one for the Glamour webinars. But the top line menu says Ask program, and you'll get to the 3 different pages for it.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's great. So if you need to review any of this or to tell your friends that we've gone into some interesting things, let them know. That's where you'll find everything. And then also on YouTube, a lot of other things are there as well. So you won't run out of anything to study, that's for sure. All right. Lots of love, many blessings, and we'll see you, soon. Bye-bye.